Okay, welcome back, everybody. Let's get on with our day. I'm going to share the schedule here just so we can get grounded on what we're doing for today. We are going to start our first day of CSS. So yesterday, we did HTML, and we know that stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's the skeleton of our page. Now we're going to add some styling to our page with our tool called CSS, and let's get into that very quickly. But this afternoon we're going to do a group project where we use our CSS skills that we're going to gain in the next hour to build some very cool flags. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I have in front of me here my Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna prepare here the platform here that's going to be our guide. And so let's go ahead and create an HTML page to get started. Okay. What should I name it? Can anyone give me the standard name that we give our HTML file?
Index.html.
Yes, index. Do that. Index.html. Okay. And what's the way we can make a shortcut to make a boilerplate for HTML?
Exclamation point.
Yep. So exclamation mark, enter. And so now we have an HTML page. I want to view this while I'm working. So I'm going to open a live server here. And it's going to be blank because our HTML page is blank. Okay. Now let's build a couple of tags here. I'm going to do 2 H1 tags. So if I use the multiplication sign after typing the type of tag I want, so just typing H1 and then I do multiplication times 3, I get 3 H1 tags now. And all I need to do is type in the content in my H1 tag. And this is going to make this a little bit easier for me. So I'm going to say, hello, class. If I press tab, now I'll go to the second one. I'll say, hello, world. Maybe the next one will be, hello, universe. Why not? Okay, so let's take a look at our progress. Great. We have 3 H1 tags. I also want to make a P tag below. So I want to make 3 P tags. So I'll do P times 3. And within this P tag, I want some filler text. Okay. It is, has anyone heard of lorem ipsum? Yeah, it's just this Latin, fake Latin text that we can put in to our Visual Studio Code that will be able to use, instead of just smashing our keyboard here and trying to fill out a bunch of words here so that we know, this is just so that we know what our page would look like if we had a large paragraph full of content. We can replace this with actual, words, but instead of having to do that, I'm going to just type in lorem, and then I'm going to say times 8. 8 is just going to be the size of the paragraph. I can do any size. So I can do lorem times 2. And that'll just give me that many words. So these are our 2 P tags, as you can see. The first one here, the second one here. And now I'll just do lorem times 5. Okay. So now we have a good visual. Now we have this basic skeleton of a page, 3 H1 classes, and 3 P tags of a different size. Okay, but now I want to affect the style. I don't want it to be so bland. So what I'm going to do is show you a couple ways how to affect the style on the page. And these are not the standard ways that we are going to want you to style your page. But these are going to be a way of example as to why we use a CSS. Okay, so we can affect the style of our H1 tag by writing within the first tag here, the opening tag, style equals, and within this quotation, I'm going to give the property and then the value. Okay, so I'm going to say color, and it's already giving me a plethora of colors. Let's do chocolate. Why not? So this is our first H1. As you can see, now we have that color. I'm going to do a couple other colors here. I'm going to do, instead of chocolate though, I'm going to do, I wonder if vanilla is a color. Is it? No. I'm just guessing here because they have all these exotic color names. I'm going to just do blue. Blue. And then I'm going to do red. Okay. Style equals red. Now we have three different, what's going on here? Did I do a typo?
You gotta have color red.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So now we have a multicolored page. And as you can see, if I do a style on every single property, our HTML file is going to get a bit messy. So if I say green here, and if I say style, color, I forgot the color here, color, green, style equals color, blue violet. Okay, that's good. As you can see, if you don't put the ending quotation, it won't work either. Style equals color, dark green. Oh, that's not good. What's going on there? Third paragraph just wigged out on me. Maybe it is a issue with, yeah, it was an issue. Make it another color. Orange. There we go. Orange, red. It's better. Okay, so now we have a multicolored page. The issue though is that as we increase our styling, we're not going to only affect the colors, we're going to affect the width of this paragraph tag. Maybe we want the paragraph to be half the size of the page. And so as we add more and more styling to our HTML page, our HTML page is going to be harder and harder to read. So the next programmer that is seeing your work is going to be frustrated. It's just not going to be clean for yourself. You're going to have to do a lot of searching on one single HTML file. So we're going to scratch this practice. We're not going to do this. Okay, I'm going to leave this here for now. But the other way that we can affect the style on our page is by going into the head here. All right. And in the head, I'm going to type in a style tag. And within this style tag, I'm going to say, I'm going to affect the whole body of the page. And then within the body, I'm going to say background color, black. Okay. Let's see. Don't let me down here. Now it's black. I've touched on the whole body by going into the style tag, typing body, putting the curly brackets, and saying background color, colon, black. So now it recognizes the color for the whole entire page. But there's an issue with this as well, and I'll show you why. So let's go to Wikipedia for a second here. And as we can see here, Wikipedia has a general style for the entire website. There's a certain font, There is a certain way that articles are defined in the paragraph form, in the divs that you can see. So if I go to Sharon Tate, it's going to have a basic style. And whatever other page I go to, let's see if I go to another page. Let's see, Jacqueline Bissett. If I go to her page or go to the detectives page, there is one style that applies to all the pages, all the different HTML pages. So the issue is, if you want to touch on one page here, you're going to have to go into that specific HTML file style and affect that. What we want is one file that affects all of our HTML pages, or a way to just separate the styling out of the HTML itself. Okay, so I'm going to reverse all these edits I've made to our page here, our original document, and I'm going to add a CSS file, and we're going to get into the meat of today's lecture here. So these are the do nots. Okay, don't add style this way, even though I just showed you how to do that. I showed you how to do that so that we can learn why CSS is beneficial to us, even though we can do styling this way. So as you progress, you may see, if you look up answers on the internet, how to affect styling of this property, you may see the styling in the tag itself, but don't copy that method. You have to do it the way we're teaching you, which is to affect a CSS document. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a CSS file. I'm going to call it style.css. So just the same way I created an HTML file, now I have a CSS file. And by the way, CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So cascading means falling from top to bottom. And the general rule here is that the style at the bottom of the page is going to overwrite the rules that we give at the top. Just like how we had in JavaScript this morning, if we give a new variable value to the same variable name, the value at the bottom of the page is going to override the previous value. Okay, so that's the general concept of why it's called cascading style sheets. It's going from top to bottom. The row at the bottom is going to override the rules at the top. Okay, so now that I have my CSS file, I'm going to arrange my Visual Studio Code in a way that I can see both my HTML and CSS at the same time. So I'm going to press this book button. I'm going to drag the CSS over to where the HTML is and delete this HTML file. Great. Now that we have the CSS file, we need to connect it to our HTML. And the way that we're going to do this is by going to our HTML file. Let me expand this so we can all see. By going to the HTML file, and somewhere in the head, I prefer to put it above the title here. I need to write a tag that links to this file. Okay, so if there's a shortcut here that I want you guys to memorize, and all you need to know is typing in link : and it's already going to give me that CSS option. I'm just going to click it here, and it's going to link the CSS now. Okay, so this part of the link itself is telling the HTML that this is a style sheet. And this portion here is going to tell the HTML document where this style sheet is. Okay, so it just says style.css, and that's because this is in the same folder. If I had my CSS in another folder, I would have to reference exactly where that folder is. If, for example, I changed the spelling on here and I called it styles.css, it's not going to link it because it's a different spelling than the way we spelled our CSS file, which is just style.css. So it has to be the same spelling. That's why I named my file style.css. I knew this link was going to call it style.css. So all I had to do was insert that link tag, and it would go ahead and connect it. All right, so now we know it's connected, and we're going to prove this by going ahead and changing back our page to the styles that we had. Okay, so I'm going to target the body again, and I'm going to give you we already saw a couple of styling rules, so I'm going to assume we've caught on to that, and define one styling rule here. I'm going to call it the body. So I'm going to just target the entire body of the HTML. We know that the body is starting at line 10 and ending at line 36. All right, so everything within the body, all the H1s that are inside it, all the children are going to be affected as well, okay? But we're going to see this whole body. We're going to give it a background color of black again, okay? So now that we do that, we already seen the change happen in the background. It's black. And we want the font to be white, so we're going to say color white. Okay, now our background color is black, and because we said color white, all our font color is now white. So we see the changes now affected by this CSS file on the right, touching our HTML file on the left. So before I continue, let's get a status check, please. Okay, great. Okay, we're doing good then. So now we know how to link a CSS file to an HTML file, and we know that we can affect or we can target the tags that we like just by typing the name of the tag or the class of the tag, and then writing within these curly brackets the rules. Okay, and by the way, there's going to be some, you have to be careful typing these rules, because if you don't include a semicolon after a rule, you can see here it's no longer affected the way we'd like it to be affected here. We need a semicolon after every single rule, or it's going to break. So be very careful here working on CSS. Sometimes just one semicolon will throw you off, and it won't tell you exactly why. So you can see on line 3, this red colon is highlighted, and it's going to say semicolon expected. It doesn't say where though. So you got to be careful to include a semicolon after each rule. Okay. Now, just like we affected the body here, we can also grab any other type of tag name by the class. Okay, so I want to affect all the H1s now. So I want to say H1, and I want my H1s to be red. Okay. And as you can see, H1s are now red. Okay, but I already defined the color to be white on line 2. Can anyone tell me why they are now red instead of white? It's not only just because I affected the H1 tags, it's because the cascading style sheets, as I mentioned, rules at the bottom are going to override the rules at the top. Okay, so if I said, for example, body color red, even though I gave color white at the top, this rule below it is going to override the previous rule. Okay, that's because it's in the name, cascading style sheets. The rules at the bottom are going to override the rules at the top. So now I'm going to just reverse this back to an H1. I just want my H1s to be red and the body, the P tags to be white. Actually, I want the P tags to be blue, okay? Or maybe green. Green's a little bit easier on the eyes. P color green. So now you can see here, we can grab any tag by its type and affect the rules this way. Are we all with me here? Can we get a status check before we move on to the next concept? Cool. Very good. Okay. Now, we have our page here, and we are going to now show you how to use class and ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you how these work, and then I'll go ahead and tell you the difference on what these why these are different and how they exist here. So what I'm going to do now is give my second p tag here, this middle paragraph. Maybe I'll separate it by a couple breaks so we can see this easier. Okay. Now this middle p tag, we are going to give a color. You want to give it a yellow color. Okay. So I'm going to call this class a certain name. I'm going to there's multiple ways you can name it. It's up to you how you name it. You want to give it a name that makes sense. Okay. So either by the rule that you are giving it, or by the function of the of this tag that you're working within. So I see that this is a middle tag. So I'm going to call this one middle p tag. I'm going to just name it this way so we can see easier. And so the way to target the class in CSS is by typing in the period or dot, and then the name of the class that we've given. So in this case, we called it middle p tag. So I'm going to do middle underscore p. Oops. Make sure you're minding the capitalization here. Middle p tag, and I'm going to say color yellow. And as you can see, it's already changed. So now we are able to specify certain tags on our page by giving a class to a certain tag, and then targeting that class by this dot here. Okay, this right here is how we do it, that dot there. Okay. And so now I'm going to show you one more concept, and it is the targeting by the ID. Okay, we already did target something by the ID previously when we wanted to give labels yesterday on our form. So this one I'm going to call last paragraph. And the way to target something by the ID is by using the hash or the pound, hashtag, whatever you'd like to call it, last paragraph. And I'm going to say this one is going to be a color of, someone give me a color, please. I can't think. Type it in the
Purple.
chat.
Blue.
Purple. I think there's purple blue or blue purple. Blue violet. There we go. There we go. Meet somewhere in the middle. There we go. So now, as you can see, our last paragraph has an ID, and it is now purple violet or blue violet. And so that is how we target something by an ID. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some warnings here. If you use the ID, you can't use it more than once. All right. So if I, for example, write another p tag and I say lorem times 3, and I copy this and I give the same ID to both, it will still work, but it's not a good practice. You don't want to do it. And there's going to be a way that we check when we are taking your test to see if your HTML is using proper naming conventions. Okay, so I'm going to just do a brief search here for an HTML checker or validator. And if we click this tab here, validate by direct input, this is something we're going to do when we're evaluating your exams. We are going to copy everything in the HTML. We're going to paste it in here. We're going to check. And it's going to say there's an error here. Duplicate ID. We use that last paragraph ID twice. Okay, so that's a no, don't do that because you'll get marked down. We only want a one ID per tag. Okay, but that is not the case with class. We can, however, apply multiple class names to different tags. Okay, so let's do that. Let's change this last paragraph from an ID to a class. And then we'll go ahead and change this hashtag here to a period. And we still get the same results. It looks the same, but if we go to our HTML checker and we copy paste this in and we do the check, and we only have one warning. There's no errors. Okay, so now this will pass. So can anyone give me any guesses as to why that is? Why is it that we can use multiple IDs, multiple classes, but not multiple IDs?
Are IDs just more specific into what you're trying to get or what you're identifying?
Okay, yeah, that's getting to it. Any other guesses?
ID is important.
ID's more important. Yeah, the ID is the most it takes the most priority. So let me try to give an example of this. So now we have last paragraph here. I'm going to copy this p tag. And let's see, by way of example, I'm going to try to do something here. So I want to enter this p tag in again. And I'm going to give this ID here of last paragraph. And I'm going to place it above the class name, and I'm going to give an ID last paragraph. And I'm also going to give it a color of orange. No, that's too close to yellow. Sea green. And I'm also going to give this one that I gave an ID, I'm also going to give it a class as well. And let's see who the winner is between class and ID. So as you can see, the second to last paragraph here that we called last paragraph with an ID in class, the ID takes priority. So don't use ID and class within the same opening tag. For one, you only need one, and two, ID is going to take priority. So have that in mind. Okay, ID is number one. So let's use ID sparingly. We only really need to use class for now when we're doing styling. Okay, now let's get a status check. Does everyone understand this?
Sorry, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So I see that like a couple of your like style changes in the style CSS don't have semicolons, but they're still working. You just said it doesn't
right.
work.
And the reason is there are no rules following it. So if I were to define a rule afterward, because this is the only rule within this tag, it's going to behave okay. But as soon as I do something else like background color blue, you see, it's not going to work unless I put the semicolon. Now
Gotcha.
the second one is going to work because nothing is following it. Okay,
Okay.
so that was a good thing you asked.
So based on that, then if you go back to the code, so you don't need that semicolon on line 6 then, is that right?
Yes, I'm just doing it out of good practice.
Okay.
I missed the other ones because I was doing this so speedy to show you guys. But general, yeah, if it's the very last rule within this selector here, within these curly brackets, it'll behave fine. But if the previous rules don't have the semicolon, CSS won't know how to divide the rules. So I'm going to take out the background color for all the p tags to be blue. And now we're going to go over a slightly different concept. We're going to go ahead and give some dimensions here to our p tag. So to all the p tags on our page, I'm going to give it a certain height and width. Okay, so I'm going to say height. I'm going to give a certain pixel amount. I'm going to say 400 pixels. I'm going to make them all boxes. Okay, so height and width are all going to be 400 pixels for all our p tags. And you define pixels by saying px. Okay, so now as you can see, there's some overriding here. We'll fix that in a second. But let's go ahead and delete all these rules. We don't want that many colors here. And let's give this yellow. And because I need to make some deletions here, let's see here. Let's just make one last paragraph so it's not so confusing. And there we go. So now our p tags have certain dimensions. We are going to also show how to affect the width and height by percent. Now this is going to get into another concept here about the box model of the page. So before I do that, can we just give a quick status check on how to affect the width and height of any div on a page? Cool. All right. So I'm going to make this a little bit more visible for everyone here. I'm going to just make one p tag and affect this here. And I'm going to change the background color from black, make this white. And instead of yellow, I'm going to say blue. So now you guys are all going to become digital artists. Slowly but surely. Okay. So now we have this p tag in a box dimension of height of 400 and width of 400. You can also affect it by percentage. So let's say of the parent container, I'm going to say of the allotted space that you are in, you're going to affect 50% of it. So now, as you can see here, is more or less still the same. It's still a box because it's 50% by 50%. So let's get into a little bit of these box concept of HTML and CSS. Let's take a look behind the hood of our web page and see here what we can do to inspect our page. We can do this to any HTML page, by the way. So what I'm going to show you here is like when you go to the front of your car and you open the hood and you look at the engine. We're going to do that right now. So if you right click on your HTML page and you scroll down to this tab here that says inspect, you click here, you'll open Pandora's box here of all these rules. And you can see here now our HTML file as it's being interpreted by our browser. So our HTML file that we have written on Visual Studio Code is now here. You can see here, if you put your mouse over the first H1, it's going to highlight over that H1. Okay. The second one, it will highlight over the second one, the third, and so on. You can also highlight over the P tag. It'll sometimes put the tags into these what do you call these arrows that will open and close for the sake of being concise here. So you can open and close this here to see exactly what's going on. And sometimes you'll need to open up, you know, if there's a div within a div within a div, sometimes you'll need to unpackage it that way if you want to see under the hood. Okay. And as we go on into our page here, you can also select by using this tool at the top left of the console. Some of your consoles may open up on the right side. There's different ways to position this console. Let's say for the sake of visibility on your page, you want your console to be on the right-hand side. If you click the three dots at the top right of your console, you should be able to select different views. So on this option here, it says dock to the right. So now I can have my console on the right. It's a little bit more visible for this page specifically, but on other pages, you'll want to move around this console based on what type of page you're working with, how it's styled. Okay. You can also click this button on the top left here, this arrow over this square, and this will let you hover over the page, and you can then inspect the page by hovering over the tags that you're trying to target. So without this, it's just a normal hover. You can't really do anything. You can copy and paste. You can highlight things. But with this one now, you can hover over the H1 tag here. And as you can see on the right, I can't hover with my mouse, but it's highlighted in this bluish color. Same with this one. As you can see, it's a little easier to see if I hover over the hello world. It's a bluish highlight there. And if I click it, it will give me the CSS properties as well. See here, H1 color red. This is the CSS property we applied to all H1 tags, so it's going to recognize the color red for this specific property. Now, what I want to show you here is this thing here. What this thing is important. This is the box model, and this is going to help us understand how to move our components or our divs, our tags around the page. So if I hover over and click it again, you can see the dimensions on the right. It's 162.400 by 36.800 pixels there. And then it has this padding area. It has dashes, so that means there's nothing there. A border, which means there's nothing there as well. But it has this margin here, as you can see. And the margin has a number on the top that's 21.44. And on the bottom, 21.44. It has nothing on the left or right, as you can see. It only has a margin on the top and bottom. As you can see, when I highlight over the margin, on the left-hand side, you'll see that margin highlighted as well. So what this is a little bit of spacing that is default spacing given to H1 tags. There are all the tags that we use have these default properties that are given to it. And when we create these tags, they're going to be there already. We can affect this by going to our CSS page, okay? And because we know the rule is margin, we're going to go to CSS, and I'm going to erase this body tag because we're not using it anymore. And I'm going to select everything on the page now. So the way to do that is by using this symbol, the multiplication symbol above the 8 on your keyboard, and then open and close the curly brackets. Now this is targeting everything. And a general rule I want to give now is margin 0, because I don't want there to be any margins now on any of the properties. I want to take out default values that HTML has given these properties. So I'm going to say margin 0. And let's take a look at our page now. Now there's no spacing because I've targeted everything on the page and I've said no more margin. Okay. And as you can see here, everything is zeroed out. The only dimension this thing has is the text on the H1, and it stretches across the width of the page. So I now want to go ahead and put some margin back on to our Hello World class. But the way I'm going to do that now is by giving this a class name. And I'm going to say Hello World. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we got to wrap this up soon. And I'm going to target the class Hello World. And I'm going to say margin dash top. And I'm going to give it a certain dimension here. So 40 pixels. And as you can see now, there's 40 pixels separating this middle Hello World tag from the one on top. So if we inspect this now, and I click on it, where's my box model? Maybe if I move this around. So finicky. Here it is. Ah, now it disappeared. Oh, I have to scroll down. There it is. So now you can see it's on the very top only. So we affected the margin at the top of this H1 tag by saying margin top. And we can do this also by defining margin left, margin right, margin bottom. I just got to change this. Cool. All right. And now if we take a look at our CSS here, now there is a bit of margin on all the sides. And as you can see on this box here, there are also a couple more properties that we can affect. There is a border and a padding. But before I get into that, let's just get a status check to see how we're feeling about this concept so far.
Josh, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
So when you use the wildcard, you use the wildcard and change the margin to 0, you affected everything, the body, like all the main container and everything inside it, right?
Everything.
But if we use just a body, we would only affect the main container. But because we used the wildcard, we affected all the containers within the body, within
Yes.
them.
Yeah, if I just use the body, I'm just going to affect the body itself. If I use this wildcard one, it's going to affect the body and everything inside the body as well. Every tag within the body.
Okay.
Is there a difference between 0 and using zero auto?
So that's a great question we can get into the details of that, but I don't want to go too deep into that. Let's answer that after the class. I don't want to get too confusing here. Yes, there is a difference. And we'll define what that means, but it's a little too advanced for now, Joseph. Thank you though.
Thank you.
So let's go into what these are now. So margin is the space around, okay? Like imagine this box that I'm looking at here is it's like an Amazon package you receive. This is the main thing that you ordered off Amazon. Okay. And let's say like they, how they deliver packages, you'll have more than one item in a box. Okay. So this is item number 1. Padding is the space inside that item that will inside the box, the main content of the item that you want, so that it doesn't shuffle around or bang anything. Okay. Margin is the padding between items in that same box, so that fluffy what do you call it, those it's like the plastic balloons. Yeah, that's what this margin would be. That's that plastic balloon beside between items. Okay, padding is something within the item itself. When you open up the package and there's all this styrofoam, that's more like what padding is. Okay, so let's go ahead and affect the padding now of our H1. And instead of doing that on this one, I'm going to do that on the Hello Universe. So I'm going to say class equals Hello Universe. Hello.
You misspelled that.
Did I make a spelling? Yeah,
On
and
the
that's
left, yeah.
yeah, and that's why copying and pasting is better. So I'm going to say padding top is 20 pixels. So let's take a look here. And if we inspect this now, oh, did we not affect it? Okay, let's just do.
You need to check Hello Universe. You checked Hello. You checked the one above it.
Who said sorry?
No, back on the page, back on the actual index page.
Uh-huh.
You were looking at
I
Hello
clicked
World
the
rather than
wrong
Hello
one.
Universe.
Yes, I clicked the wrong one. I got a little too ahead of myself. So now we can see there's a padding top on Hello Universe itself. Okay. Let's affect the background colors of each of these so that we can have a better view. So I'm going to say background color orange, background color light blue. So as you can see, when you affect the padding, it's going to affect this background color as well. It's going to increase the size of the background color because you're still within the main package that you ordered here. Whereas this one, when you affect the margin, it's not going to affect the background color. It's going to affect everything around it. Now, border is something that you can use as well. And often border is another box property that you can use that will help you see your page. So or see the specific div that you're working on. So let's target hello class, and I will say class equals hello class, and I'm going to put that right here. So class, and I'm going to say border. I'm going to give it a color to the border. So I'm going to say 2 pixels, solid red. So now you can see here, there is a red border around hello class. And that's because I gave it a border. And there's a lot more cool things you can do with a border, but for now, this is all you need to know. And so there's lots of different properties that you can affect to the box model. Every single tag that you have has all those elements: the margin, the border, the padding, and then you can affect the size of the div itself, of that in this case, it's an H1 tag. So you can increase the size itself, you can increase the padding size, the border size, or the margin. Okay, so let's get a status check. Are we all following along with this concept? Great. Okay. Let's see here. We are this afternoon going to go deeper into CSS and talk about how to make these, we're going to call them blocks on our page, behave in a certain way. So as you can see, anytime you write an H1 tag, it will be below the other H1 tag. And that's because that's the default way HTML will organize a page when it reads the tags. But we can use CSS in order to arrange our H1s, our divs in a certain way so that we can have a nicer page. So we can have articles side by side like this here. This would be a div, this whole box section here. Let's see here if I can annotate this. So this would be a section here. We're going to figure out how to put sections side by side each other this afternoon. Okay. But for now, we understand the box model. We understand how to write a CSS page, how to affect the rules on the CSS page, the difference between class, ID, and affecting by selecting by the tag name itself, by its type. This case is just H1, so all our H1s are red. So this will be a pretty good time to wrap up our lecture for today. We need to get back to our assignments since we're over time anyway. How are we feeling? Does anyone have any questions at this time?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So for example, the color for Hello World, like the H1 tag, the second one,
Yeah.
with the orange, is there a way to define the length of where that color stops?
Yes. That would be by affecting the, so you said Hello World, right? So we want the width to be, let's say 200 pixels. So now the whole entire length of this orange section or this second H1 tag is going to be 400 pixels. If I make it less than the length that it's allotted, let's say 100 pixels, now it'll overlap. You'll have Hello World, the words stacked on top of each other there. Good question. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Another quick question. Can you, how was it you got this view of the page itself, the split screen view we're looking at again?
So I right-clicked on my HTML page, the browser view. I clicked inspect, and it'll open up the console. I can move this console to different areas on the page by clicking those three dots at the top right and moving the dock. So I can move the dock to the bottom, or I can move the dock to the right. Those are probably the best two options that you have there. You can move it to the left as well.
Thank you.
However you like it.
Josh, we can play with the page from within the inspect element. It wouldn't change the code itself, would it?
Right. It would not change the code itself. So you can change the page, for example. So I want to say hello everybody instead of hello world. So now if I do this, I click out of it. Now I have hello everybody. You can play essentially with any page by going to the inspect tool and you know, let's say if I want to change the name of this one here, I want to say the True Detective. If I click out, I've just affected this Wikipedia page. It's only affecting the view, and you know, it's not really affecting the code that's the page itself. So our browser receives the HTML CSS code that Wikipedia is sending, and as we have our form of the receipt, we can augment the receipt but it doesn't really change the true code. So you're the only one seeing this difference. And by the way, this is a funny way that sometimes, those scam hackers will show you that maybe you emptied your bank account. They'll have you log into your bank account and they'll say, hey, you've emptied it out, because they're able to go into the HTML and change your, your amount in your savings or your checkings. They can just change the view of it to 0 and then scam you that way. So now you can go ahead and scam the world. Don't do it.
So if you refresh, it goes away.
If I refresh, it's back to normal.
Is it a new request?
Yeah, it's a new request. Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, just like when you receive a receipt from store for an item you buy, you can technically use a little whiteout and change the number of values that you receive. That doesn't really change what the true receipt is. You're just changing it a little bit. You can change it using this inspect tool. So it's pretty handy, right? It helps you understand what's going on, and you can use it on any page, any web page. Basically, you can inspect and see what's going on there. One time I was purchasing a drum cymbal on a website, and the website was pretty bad. It was asking me to enter my information to make the purchase, and like the display, the view of it wasn't right. I didn't know where to enter my email, where to enter my credit card information. The only way I can see how to do that was by inspecting the page on my end and seeing what it was supposed to say. So I was able to hover over the text input area, and it was saying here on the inspect tool, this is the area for email. I had to let that person know. I called them and said, hey, you probably need to fix your page. I was able to figure out how to make the purchase, but that's only because I'm a developer. You have a bad page. So he, called his developer and let him know. So cool. Any other questions we can answer at this time? Okay, I think this is a good chance to wrap up this lecture. You guys have a lot of work to do. And by the way, let me go ahead and end this recording.